Hello everyone, welcome to Chart Engineers. Today we're just going to cover the first weekly breakdown, and we're going to cover price action from the 29th of March till the 2nd of April. So we'll just start off on the Monday on the 29th, and we'll start off on the H4 time frame. So I'll firstly mark out any structure breaks. So here's my most recent structure break to the downside. So H4 bearish structure break, and what that tells me is that price will eventually want to go lower. So we've got no fair value gaps anywhere, so just mark out this structure break to the downside. Then I would go to the H1 time frame, and we see that London open starts here at 7 AM and closes at 10 AM. So first we can see that we actually had a H1 raid over here, and then we get another one over here. So here at 6 AM we got a H1 raid. So at 7 AM I could be looking to take longs because of the H1 raid, and then once we get another H1 raid here I can switch my bias, because then we'll eventually get a structure break to the downside on the H4 and the H1. So here first, once we get this H1 liquidity raid at 6 AM, then move down to the M5 time frame. So here we also get a M5 liquidity raid at 7:10, and then once we get the M5 raid I'll go down to my M1 time frame and just look for your market structure break and return to the breaker zone. So here's a breaker zone, and here's the most recent fractal high after a liquidity rate to the bottom. So that's your market structure break. See that price breaks above and we get our RTO, so our entries would be over here. With your TP at 3R, and we see that this trade you actually don't hit your TP, but what I do is at 3R at 2R I will move my stops to break even. So once price hits here my stops will go to break even, so when price eventually does come back we get stopped out at break even and not at -1. But before that you just want to eye up any more entries. So there we had the H1 raid, then we've got another M5 raid here. So another M5 raid, go back to your 1 minute time frame. So your most recent fractal high would be these double tops. So that's your bullish structure break, and your breaker zone would be here. So your raids here, your structure break over here, this candle break structure, and then price comes back, and we've got two breaker zones on top of each other. That's just an added confluence that price wants to go higher. So your entry here, stops below, and your TP at 3R. So this first entry you would have got stopped at break even over here, but this entry, see, you get your entry and your TP within a couple of minutes. So on this day I would have taken my 2 trades already, because I've taken this one here and this one here. For this day I'd be up 3R, and I only take 2 trades per day, but we'll just carry on marking some of the trades that we could have taken if we just carried on trading. So then we see that we get a H1 raid over here and price drops lower, and then we eventually get the H4 market structure break. Then we get another M5 raid here, but it's during our dead zone, so from 10 till 1. So I'm not really trading in between these hours. Sometimes I'll be back by 12, but most of the time I'll just come back at 1 PM. So you can mark this one out. So you have your M5 raid. Then mark out your breaker zone and your structure break. So most recent throughout the low would actually be this one. See that once price come back, if you ended up taking this trade, even though it's out of the kill zones, but you still would have hit your TP. But yeah, I wouldn't have taken this one. So then once you're back at your charts at 1 or 12, you just wanna go over your H4 and H1 again, and we would have seen that we actually got a structure break. So we got a structure break, then on the H4 we got a structure break, and then on the H1 we also had a H1 raid. So H1 raid, and you can mark out your breaker zone from the H1 raid. So after H1 raid I'll just go to the 1 minute time frame and mark out your breaker zone. So it's from here till here, and you see that during New York price comes back, tags you in, and then you see price just drops lower again. So this is another +3. Yeah, so +3R, and then you had that +3R from here. Then if you ended up taking this trade, you could have got another +3 here. But if you didn't take this trade, we'll just eye up any more opportunities. So we've got an M5 raid over here, and then we've got another one straight away over here. So the first raid is from here, and your structure low is here, so we don't get a market structure break, so I can delete this because there was no trade. And then we have your M5 raid, M1 structure break, and then your breaker zone, and you see we don't get tagged in, so this one's a swerve, so no trade there as well. But then you just wanna keep marking out your M5 raids. So we've got another one over here. Yeah, so we've got one here, and then we've got no more till, well, until the next day. So we'll just mark out if we actually get an entry over here. M5 raid. Your breaker zone would be this. So your price comes back to tag you in. So this breaker zone is 9 pips, 9.3 pips. Target would be Streeter. So Streeter. So if you ended up taking this trade and holding it till London session the next day, see that price would have hit your TP. So on this day we could have taken 1, 2, 3, and then here's your fourth trade. So one is a break even trade, another one is a 3R trade win, another win up here, and then another win up here. So this is a Monday done. So then we'll move on to Tuesday. Start off on your H4 time frame again. So over here you see that we actually get a H4 liquidity raid over here. What that tells us is that price may want to go higher. So yeah, the 6 AM candle, we actually get a, well, the 5 AM candle we get a H1 raid and a H4 raid when the 6 AM candle closes. And because of this, we will just want to look for any M5 raid to the bottom so we can start taking longs. And you see that we actually do get a raid, an M5 raid, but the entry is before 7 AM, so we wouldn't take that trade if there is one. But yeah, you just continually looking for longs. We get another, well, it's actually not a raid, no raid, and then we see that price breaks lower, and what that tells us is that price wants to go lower now because it's invalidated the sweep, as now it's closing below on once a 7 AM candle closes. So here's the 7 AM candle and price closed below the H4 sweep, so we can delete that. So we can delete that one, and price actually leaves a fair value gap over here. So here's your fair value gap. Just check the H4 again. So yeah, here was a raid. Price closes below on the H4 as well, so another structure break, but that would be at 10 AM, so from 6 AM till 10 AM. So don't need to worry about that for now, but I'll just mark it up. So here, once the 8 AM candle closes, we leave a H1 fair value gap, so before the 8 AM we can continue looking for shorts. And you see that we don't get any M5 liquidity raids, and then we actually get a M5 liquidity raid to the bottom once the 8 AM candle closes. So because the 8 AM candle have now closed, we have a fair value gap on the H1 here, which needs to get filled. So because we got that fair value gap, I would be confident taking any longs. So here, M5 liquidity raid, go back to your M1 time frame. So you have your raid over here at 8:56, so 9 AM is when the M5 closes. Then just want to mark out your market structure break. So here's your market structure break, and here's your breaker zone. And you see that price tags you in at 9.12, and price just goes to a TP. But you see that price actually don't come back to that FVG, but that don't matter because we've already got a 3-hour trade already, so we don't need to hold price until this target, because I just take my 3-hour TPs. I don't really like holding trades, but anyway, once 10 AM hits, we can get off charts. So I'm not really looking for any entries between 10 till 12 or 1. So then once we come back at 1 PM, just want to check your H1 time frame and mark out any structure breaks or fair value gaps. And over here we've got a market structure break to the downside. So your market structure break over here, and we've got this H1 order block over here, because this is the last bullish candle that broke structure. So price broke below, price comes back, and then you see it drops lower until the next day. So because we know that price has broken structure and we're in our H1 order block, we can confidently take some shorts now. So here's 1 PM. Just want to mark out any liquidity raids. Here we've got a raid, so these candles. Just mark out any more that we see. Over there. Then not really a liquidity raid. Then we've got one here. So we'll just go to the 1 minute now and see if we actually get any entries on these. So the first one's here, and our structure low is here. See that price doesn't come to it, so we can delete this one. No trade here. Over here we've got a liquidity raid. Mark out your structure break. So here the highest point, and then your structure break to the downside. So you can mark that one out, and then you can mark out your breaker zone. And you see that once we break structure, we actually don't come back to the breaker zone, so no trade over here. And then we actually get a trade over here. So here's your breaker zone, and here's your market structure break, and you see that this one's actually a losing trade. So this is a -1 and a +3. So for this day you're up a total of 2R. So if you're risking 1%, that's 2% profit, and if you're risking 2%, then that would be 4% profit for this day. Then we can move on to the Wednesday. So I'll just clean up the chart a bit. So here's a Wednesday, and you just want to mark out any fair value gaps or structure breaks. So over here we have a fair value gap, and then we've got another one over here. So 2 fair value gaps, even though price does look bearish. We've got fair value gaps where a lot of liquidity is, so price may want to go higher like it does here. And we also have a H4 order block. So H4 order block and H4 market structure break to the top side. So structure break to the top side. And what this indicates is that price wants to go higher, and we've also got these fair value gaps. This fair value gap gets filled over here, so we can delete that one, but we've still got this one left. So then move on to H1 time frame. And you see on the H1 we also get a market structure break over here at the 7 AM candle. So at 8 AM we actually get the structure break. So we can go to our 5-minute time frame and look for any liquidity rates. So no raid here because this candle closes below the raid line. So close it below, so I wouldn't count that as a raid. Then no raid over here and no raid over here. So you just gotta be patient, just wait for your raids. So for London session we get no trades on this day. See that price breaks above, comes back to the H4 order block, and at 1 PM you just want to check your high time frame again. Check the H4, you see we got a strong close above and we start rejecting. And then on the H1, so at 1 PM we actually get a liquidity raid. So H1 raid. Then you want to go to a 5-minute time frame, and you see that it is also a M5 raid, and we have another M5 raid here. So then go to a 1-minute time frame, so for the first raid, the H1 and M5 raid, your breaker zone will start here, but your market structure break would be all the way here. So we would need that market structure break first, which comes all the way over here, and you see that price does not come back to the breaker zone. So this would not count as a trade because we did not get the structure break and RTO. But because we actually did have that H1 raid, that just tells us that price actually wants to go higher. And then we've got another M5 raid over here. We want to mark out your structure break, which comes at this candle, and then your breaker zone again. And we see that after the structure break, price does not come back to your M1 breaker zone. So on this day we have been swerved twice, even though our direction is correct. So even though you might have your direction correct, you might not always get the entries, but you just need to be disciplined and patient. So because we know price wants to go higher because of the H4 order block, H4 structure break, and the H1 raid over here, and the 2 M5 raids, we know that price wants to go higher, so we're just looking for more M5 raids. And I think we also, so here's our FVG, the H4 one, just mark it out again. So here's your H4 FVG, we have all those confluences, H4 MSP, H4 order block, H4 fair value gap up top, which is a draw for price because there's a lot of liquidity there. Then we also have the H1 raid over here. So a lot of confluence that price wants to go higher, but just no entries. So then price fills the FVG, and what that tells us is that price may want to reverse. So we see as soon as we fill it, price just starts to drop, and it's not give any entries on the way down either. So on this day there's just no trades to enter. But yeah, you just need to stay disciplined and patient and wait for your setup to come, or you might start to make some silly mistakes which could lead to some losses. So yeah, so the Wednesday no trades. So on the next day you just want to mark out your H4 structure breaks, fair value gaps and raids. And over here we actually get a market structure break to the downside, so a better structure break, but we are still in the H4 order block, so price can continue to go higher or continue to go lower. And we would need more confluence to choose which direction price actually wants to go to. So this is the H4. Then move on to H1, and we see that price has a H1 fair value gap over here. So a H1 fair value gap within the H4 order block. So fair value gap, price fills it at 7 AM. Can move on to your 5-minute time frame. And we see as soon as London Open starts, we get the FVG filled, and we have a 5-minute liquidity raid. So a 5-minute liquidity raid over here at 7:05, and then you just want to go to your 1-minute time frame. Mark out your structure break. So here's a raid, and here's your most recent structure high, which would be your M5 structure break. I'll just delete that FVG now. Then you just want to mark out your breaker zone, which is there. So 7:05 is when you get your raid, and then price is just ranging inside your breaker zone until you see that eventually just flies off, and that's another +3. So in London session we get this win. Now you just want to mark out more liquidity raids. So no liquidity raid, no raid, no raid, no raid here. We get a raid over here. So we get a raid over here. Go to your 1-minute time frame. And you see that your structure breaks all the way up here, and price doesn't come to that area, so there's no trade over here. And then at 10 AM you can get off your charts. Don't really need to look for any more entries until New York session. So over here we see that price, there's no reason for price to actually reverse, so we can still be bullish. Yeah, there's no reason for price to reverse. We actually get a H1 raid here, but higher time frame is still very bullish, so the H4 is still very bullish. You might not want to take shorts over here. I would still be bullish because of the H4. I would just continue to mark out any liquidity raised to the bottom. So get one over here in the New York session. So here's your raid. And then here's your breaker zone. And here's your market structure break to the top side. So bullish structure break, still bullish because of the H4. So here's your second entry of this day. Just see if it actually does hit STRR. So entry here, stops below, target STRR. And you see just after New York session, we actually hit our TP. So on this day we've got 2 trades, 2 longs, so London session and then New York session, and they both hit TP. So another successful day, just trading the same strategy. And then we move on to the last day of the week, which is Friday. And this was a bit of a weird Friday because it was NFP, because it's the first Friday of the new month, so April. And it was also a bank holiday because it was going to be Easter on Sunday. So I didn't trade this day, but we'll just mark out how price reacted on this day. So on the Thursday we actually left this H4 fair value gap, so we knew price would want to come down and fill it. And we also have these H4 liquidity rates. So 2 H4 liquidity rates. Go down to your H1 time frame. Price still got this H4 fair value gap over here. We don't have any H1 fair value gaps, but we see that we have a H4 liquidity rate over here. So coming into the London session you would be bearish. So over here you're bearish. We also have a H1 liquidity rate and another H1 liquidity rate over here. So price is actually looking very bearish. So then go down to your M5 time frame. And you see that we get a M5 raid as well. So this would give me a lot of confluence and confidence to short it. So M5 raid, go down to your M1, and we see that price creates this breaker zone over here. So this breaker zone is 6.5 pips, and you see that price stops us out on this trade. So if on NFP day you're -1, but we're still bearish, and we see that price eventually get the H4 and H1 liquidity raid. So here's a H1 raid, and then it's also a H4 raid again in New York session. And then we also have a M5 raid over here. So that's your M5 raid. Price in between 10 and 1. I'm not taking any trades. And then you see over here we have the H1, H4 and M5 raids. So you can go and mark your M1 breaker zone. So it would be from here. Just want to extend it. That's your breaker zone. And you see during news, price rallies up, tags you in before dropping all the way lower, and this is your 3-hour trade for this day. So yeah, here's your 3-hour trade for this day. So on this day would have had one loss over here and then a win over here during NFP, and then not really much going on after that. So no raid over here, no raid over here, and get a small raid over here. Just mark it out, and we'll just see if we actually got an entry. So yeah, these double lows would be your structure break to the downside, and your breaker zone would be from here. And you see after the structure break we don't get the RTO, so no trade over here. So yeah, this is this week. We have one trade here, another trade here, so just go over how much R you could have got throughout the whole week. So Monday, break even trade here, then we had a +3R over here, and then another +3R in New York. That's +6 for the day, and we had another win over here if we held it till the next day. That's another +3, so 9R on Monday. Tuesday, another win over here, that's another +3, so that's 12. And then we have a loss over here, so -1, that's 11R. Then the next day we got no entries on the Wednesday, so you just start +11R. On the Thursday we had our raid, structure break, and then our +3 again, so that's 14R for the week so far. And then again another win over here, which does 3R as well, so now you're up 17R for the week. And then you have a -1, so now you're at +16, and then a win during NFP, so +19 for this week. So you see that the week gave a lot of opportunities using my strategy. So yeah, I would just recommend that you back test it yourself. So if you've got any questions regarding any of the setups in this video, then just let me know, and I hope that this video has been useful to your trading, and I hope that you found it beneficial. And we will be releasing a weekly breakdown every week, just going over the week's price action and any trading opportunities, just to show you lot how we would go about each week and trade it. So yeah, I hope you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the Discord server.